Tonight on CFTK-TV, with the GST cut, restaurants have relished recent business, dementia cases have increased around the nation, and why families around the U.S. are seeking asylum here in Canada.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Hello, I'm Damian Smith, and thank you for joining us here on CFTK-TV. While some terrorist police officers were in the middle of investigating a municipal bylaw infraction, the RCMP managed to come across a large amount of both controlled drug substances as well as drug trafficking equipment. This unexpected drug bust saw the terrorist RCMP seize items such as 43 grams of fentanyl, 22 grams of cocaine, 49 grams of methamphetamine, and pills that are suspected to be Oxycontin, in addition to cash and some things that are consistent with items used for drug trafficking. This discovery comes a little under 2 weeks after terrorist RCMP busted a suspected drug trafficker for carrying several illegal drugs, weapons, cash, and other unidentified pharmaceuticals. As for the present case, the investigation happens to be still ongoing and no charges have been laid. Now, in the business development section of their website, the City of Terrace is looking to have various buildings that they own, like the library, aquatic center, and RCMP building, being assessed. And to determine the assessments on how to fix issues that these buildings may have, the city has a proposal form on their website where interested parties can offer up their services and disclose how much said services will cost. February 13th at 2 p.m. is the cutoff date, and the time for proposals to be sent in is March 3rd, which is the day that a contract will be handed out. The City of Terrace's procurement opportunities subsection inside business and development is where more information can be found online. Now, this past weekend, the Dawson Creek RCMP got word about shots being fired at 102nd Avenue late at night. Police arriving at the scene and found a man deceased. And while those officers were in the middle of that investigation, even more shots were reportedly heard at a nearby hotel. One other person was found at that other scene with non-life-threatening injuries, and they ended up getting taken to the hospital. Currently, no charges have been laid, and the investigation is still ongoing. Moving on to news down on the mainland, local tourism hubs are preparing for a number of travelers if a trade war does happen between Canada and the United States. However, at the same time, Canadians may not be likely to travel outside of the country themselves. Brendan Strain from CTV News has more.
We should really be thinking carefully about spending our money in that country.
It's a call from BC's Premier asking us to think twice about traveling to the U.S. under the looming threat from President Trump of 25% tariffs. In Victoria, the words aren't falling on deaf ears.
I think it's an absolutely good idea. I think Donald Trump's a bully.
Destination Greater Victoria has its opinion on what impacts those tariffs will have on tourism for the region.
Honestly, I think it would be very damaging.
The CEO says 60% of travelers coming to Vancouver Island are Canadians. And if those tariffs go into play on February 1st, as the president suggests, it will have a negative impact on Canadians' ability to afford travel.
Port Angeles is the southern suburb of Victoria.
35 kilometers south of Victoria, the Port Angeles Chamber of Commerce is taking a wait-and-see approach on the tourism impact. The executive director says friction between the two countries could play a role.
Because of the perceived relationship between the countries and across the borders and that sort of thing.
Canadian currency is going to take a big hit.
If that happens and the dollar dips, then we could see more Americans traveling north to cash in on the low Canadian dollar.
Which could be good for Canada, I would think. It may be not so great for our side.
The first thing is that it's not at all clear that tariffs are actually going to be imposed on February 1st.
This UVic political science professor says Donald Trump did two contradictory things during his first day in office, beginning with signing an order directing his Secretary of Commerce to produce a report on the United States trade deficit with its closest trading partners, including Canada, then recommending steps for further action on April 1st. Later that day, saying to a reporter that his administration will impose them on February 1st.
So it does suggest that Mr. Trump was shooting from the hip a little bit when he said February 1st.
What everyone seems to agree on is that some form of tariffs are coming, which could lead to a trade war between our two countries. And Canadians need to buckle up.
Think through it wisely. Spend your money wisely.
Brendan Strain, CTV News, Victoria.
And back to news in Kitimat. While it has taken a bit longer to figure out than initially expected, the District of Kitimat has figured out when they will begin the, quote, tender process involving the local ice rink getting repaired. It has been decided that the process will begin sometime during the end of this month, and once it is awarded, the district will then have an idea of when the repairs might get finished. The process in question appears to be the district's way of figuring who should be the party that ends up doing the repairs. The district also thanked local community groups and other users for adapting to the Kitimat ice rinks issues of which that mainly stem from a fire that started via a heater in the referee room last year. Continuing more with tariff talks as we are approaching the February 1st deadline. Among Donald Trump's many executive orders as president, many of those in the LGBTQ+ community are seeking asylum in Canada. Judy Trin has more on this international story over in Ottawa.
The official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
The president's executive order signals first steps in rolling back transgender rights and inclusive policies. It's enough for this dual citizen to consider moving her family back to Ontario from Minnesota.
I have a non-binary child, and I have a lot of kids with special needs whose services, I'm afraid, will be cut.
Since Donald Trump's election, this immigration law firm has been fielding an average of 50 calls a day from Americans asking about asylum for their LGBTQ2S+ families.
A lot of people are worried that protections that were, hard won recently are being ripped away.
Refugee claims from Americans are usually not approved because the federal government doesn't consider the country unsafe.
To suggest that the U.S. is not a safe space for trans people, for the LGBT community, I think is a bit of a bridge too far.
Gemma Hickey will be flying straight into the storm when they land in Seattle. On their passport, Hickey's sex is listed as X. Will U.S. Customs recognize it?
I don't know what to expect when I go to the U.S. and if I will get passed or if I'll get detained or what. I don't know what's happening.
Back at home, attitudes among some Canadian leaders align with the U.S.
I'm not aware of any other genders than men and women. I mean, if you have any other that you want me to consider, you're welcome to tell me right now.
Certainly an indication of where he intends to go should he form government. And I guess he sees that, or he thinks that it's working for the U.S.
Even as Trump's executive orders generate despair on both sides of the border, U.S. advocates are determined to fight his gender policies in court.
Moving on, the public will have an opportunity to learn more about the LNG Canada's startup plans for their Kitimat operations tonight. LNG Canada will be hosting a Safe Startup meeting to cover their Safe Startup overview, a flaring update, talk about air quality and noise, and hear community feedback. And the event runs from 7 to 9 p.m. tonight at the Kitimat Legion. Coming up next, a cold spurt in the southern U.S. has put locals in an uncomfortable position. Welcome back to CFTK-TV. Down in the southern U.S. states, they are in the middle of a rare cold spurt which has affected just about everyone with an abundance of car crashes. Thousands are also currently without power and 4 deaths have been recorded as well. This vast cold front has impacted a big portion of the United States, and many are calling it a once-in-a-lifetime type of forecast.
A once-in-a-lifetime southern storm causing chaos across the region. In Georgia, icy roads creating treacherous driving conditions and causing this 20-car pileup on a slick hill. Another road so impassable, many people abandon their vehicles. In Alabama, an early start on planned demolition for the Mobile Civic Center as the entire roof came crashing down under the weight of the snow. Canal and Bourbon streets in New Orleans completely covered in ice.
We're out of here,
slipping and sliding.
The city saw at least 8 inches of snow, tripling its previous all-time high more than 60 years ago. Tens of thousands in Georgia and Florida are still without power. The winter storm also blamed for 4 deaths across multiple states. 3 major bridges in Jacksonville, Florida closed due to multiple crashes and icy concerns, and hundreds of flights canceled and delayed across the region, causing long lines at Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport.
It's moving very slowly. It's like nothing I've ever seen before.
While the New Orleans airport looked like a ghost town, aerial views of New York City showing sheets of ice floating on the Hudson River, while snow also blanketed the coastline of the Carolinas.
Not supposed to snow at the beach.
Out west, the same Arctic air mass, plunging temperatures into the negatives in Wyoming, frigid enough to freeze one woman's wet hair in just seconds. While back in the south, many agree the cold has quickly worn out its welcome.
How ready are you for this all to melt?
I'm ready. We packed warmly. We just didn't know there'd be 8 inches of snow.
And now we turn our attention to your local weather forecast for tonight and the week ahead. On the north coast, it should be mainly cloudy with a 30% chance of showers with winds light except from the northwest at 30 kilometers per hour over the coastal sections. The temperature should be at 6 degrees and pretty steady. The Terrace and Kitimat region should be mainly cloudy tonight with a 30% chance of flurries and a low of -2. The Bulkley Valley and Lakes District should have a few clouds with lighter winds at 15 kilometers per hour. The low will be -14 with the wind chill of -13 during the evening. Onto your weekly weather forecast, the coast should see some sun up until the start of next week. There might be some chances of showers for the next couple of days as well. Starting next week, expect either flurries or showers, and the low will be -1 on Sunday night, and the high will be 6 degrees tomorrow. Terrace and Kitimat should see a bit more sun up until Tuesday, where there is a decent chance of flurries, at least for right now. The high will be 1 for 3 days this week, and the low will be -5 on Tuesday night, but that is subject to change. Finally, the Bulkley Valley should have fully clear conditions with a bit cooler temperatures, with a small chance of flurries starting next week. The high will be 0 degrees on Sunday, while the low will be -8 on Tuesday night. And now we take a look at your Northwest roadside report. For more updates, make sure to check out drybc.ca. Highway 16 has water pooling from Skeena to Terrace, fog patches and water pooling from Terrace to Doreen, compact snow from Burns Lake to Prince George, and there is roadside brushing in Vanderhoof. Highway 37 has water pooling and fog patches from Terrace to Kitimat and compact snow from Kitwanga to the Yukon border. Highway 37A has a vehicle incident between American Pullout and Cullen Crescent Bridge and compact snow throughout. Highway 118 has compact snow. The Nishka Highway has fog patches and water pooling, and Telegraph Creek Road has compact snow. And these are what the roads were looking like from around the Northwest. Still to come, after a tough 2024, restaurants have relished everything about the GST cut. Hello again. Local distilleries in downtown Vancouver are saying that it's never been a better time to be a distiller, and the time is now to rely on local resources now that uncertainty is expected with Canada and the US when it comes to alcohol exporting. Here's Andrew Johnson of CTV News.
You need it to go through that, it's called a vodka column.
From vodka columns to fermenters, Gordon Glanz has distilling down to a science.
The golden age of distilling, I would say, in BC.
We're in it right now.
We're in it right now.
And at Vancouver's Odd Society Spirits, everything's local.
Our latest gin is a strawberry gin. We get strawberries from the Fraser Valley and infuse them in our regular gin. It's become very popular.
Local liquor options could soon be thrust into the spirit spotlight if the U.S. goes ahead with Donald Trump's tariffs on Canadian goods. Because in retaliation, Ontario and BC are now threatening to pull American booze off the shelves at government liquor stores.
We're the largest purchaser of alcohol in the entire world. They will feel the pain.
We have trade agreements with the Americans that we have to treat their products like our own. But if they're not going to abide by our trade agreements, then neither are we.
BC's premier is suggesting now is the time to think local, not only in terms of eating and drinking, but also shopping, even vacationing, anything that will send a strong message south.
Vancouverites we spoke to are split on how to deal with the threat.
I think we really need to retaliate. I think the whole idea is absolutely ridiculous. It's just, and Trump doesn't understand it. He doesn't realize how seriously that's going to hurt the Americans.
The better strategy is to realize that America is 10 times our size economically, and we have to work with them. So rather than, we'll get you back, we actually make an effort to work with them.
At odd society spirits, the potential boost in business is bittersweet.
In some ways it would be good for us, but you really don't want to hope that it's going to come to this crazy impasse.
Andrew Johnson, CTV News, Vancouver.
And the first round of bargaining talks has begun between BC's provincial government and the union representing public service workers. The BC General Employees Union represents thousands of government workers in the public service agency, covering the likes of sheriffs all the way over to social workers. And a major focus of the talks is expected to be wage increases that would address affordability issues. And Union President Paul Finch said he anticipates a dispute in the first round of bargaining. In more financial news, it's been a rough year for restaurant businesses in the year of 2024, where the 2-month GST tax break has given room to work with for some of these restaurants around Canada. Craig Krause has more on this story.
Every meal prepared in this kitchen typically has been hit with a 5% tax until last month.
Anything helps. It's a very small amount, but we all notice.
GST has been paused by the federal government in an attempt to help before and after Christmas, something that has paid off for Honeybee in downtown Vancouver.
I think there's probably been about 7% of a sales increase year over year that we haven't seen in a little while.
According to data from Restaurants Canada, from December 14th to the 27th, dining in increased 18% nationally year over year. BC below the national average at 12% during a season when dining in is limited.
It unfortunately is ending very soon, so that little boost unfortunately will be temporary.
And we'd love to see that permanent.
Beyond February 15th, sparking Restaurants Canada to call on Ottawa to end the tax.
2024 was a really rough year for restaurants. We had a record number of bankruptcies and closures, and in BC we lost 11,000 employees. So this would certainly be a good shot in the arm.
But would the revenue the tax generates have to be found elsewhere?
With that reduction in tax revenue comes either reduced government services or increased taxes elsewhere. Assuming it's met by a similar tax increase elsewhere, consumers may well be worse off.
Although with U.S. President Donald Trump threatening tariffs, Davidoff says employment would likely be reduced and prices rise, opening the door for some kind of stimulus.
There's room for fiscal stimulus without generating hyperinflation. So things like extending tax holidays not at all out of the question in 2025.
And now we turn our attention to the stock market, where we have a fair share of categories with drops today. The Canadian dollar is slightly down. The price of gold is down $5.90. Oil is down 82 cents. Natural gas is down 4 cents, and aluminum is down $25. In Toronto, the TSX is up 122 points. The Venture Index is down 1.11. In New York, the Dow Jones is up 408, and NASDAQ is up 44.34. Still ahead, the Raptors 905 show their initiative towards mental health. Welcome back to our final segment here on CFTK-TV. With an increase in reports of dementia around the country, many are wanting for more funding for seniors who suffer from it. Here's Yasmin Gandam of CTV News.
There are more than 85,000 people across the province suffering from dementia. According to the BC Alzheimer's Society, a number it expects to triple by 2050.
Population starts to age and we see those greater increases in the number of older adults. We're also going to see a concomitant increase in the number of folks who live with dementia.
She adds some are at greater risk.
Where we typically see women who are more likely to develop Alzheimer's disease or related dementia. And we also know that we're going to see some significant increases in folks who are of Asian ancestry.
This UBC researcher says it's another reminder on the dire need for more treatment options.
It is worrying. It is a big burden on our healthcare system as well. So we need to have some active planning and some action to try to address this.
The BC Seniors Advocate says there needs to be more funding to ensure seniors who are suffering are supported.
Things like home support, respite care, adult day centers, long-term care. And we want to see the treatments that are available, funded and available for people who have Alzheimer's disease so they can live life to the fullest.
It comes as people who have had their elderly loved ones go missing are now calling on the federal government to develop a silver alert system, similar to emergency alerts.
Having an alert that actually went to people's phones would have really helped the situation because he was on foot and he was walking in the community.
Moberg believes the alert could save seniors with cognitive decline as a growing number of people are diagnosed with the disease.
There's over 400 people every day in Canada developing dementia.
For those suffering, the Alzheimer's Society hopes January's Awareness Month helps them remember they are not alone. Yasmin Gandham, CTV News, Vancouver.
And for our final story of the day, it's from Rahim Ladani over in Toronto, who was in attendance for a charity basketball match to promote mental health for the youth.
With this much energy on a school day, it must be a special occasion. Thousands of students from across the GTA, out of the classroom and in the stands, cheering on the Raptors 905 and the conversation surrounding mental health.
I talk with my family about my mental health, and when I talk with my family, I feel good and I feel like I can open up.
Sometimes people don't have good mental health, and I feel bad for them, and people have to be nicer to them.
Wearing special blue jerseys with the Bell Let's Talk logo on their shorts, the Raptors 905 have been prioritizing youth mental health for years, and teachers say this annual field trip provides an invaluable lesson.
They need to be part of the community. They need to experience these things for the appreciation. One of these students could aspire to be here one day, and that's the thing we're looking for. And the more chance they get to do this, the more communication they have.
Over the years of Bell Let's Talk Day, students and teachers tell me the stigma surrounding talking about mental health as a broad topic has gone down, but there remains a lot of work to be done when it comes to talking about personal mental health conditions, and that's what schools are trying to improve on.
Students come to school with a lot of accessories, a lot of a heavy heart, and so part of my role is to support students with that social emotional capacity, whether that be someone to talk to, a quiet space, an alternate learning environment.
Excessive screen time and social media continues to play a contributing role towards early onset mental health conditions.
I block out the comments and just tell myself that I'm good enough.
That strong mindset can go a long way. And while schools foster a nurturing environment, students understand they also have to take an active role in improving how they feel.
You just need to have a good schedule. You need to be eating good, having a good sleep routine, trying to sleep early, wake up at a decent time. It can be hard, but with practice, anything is possible.
A winning attitude that's beneficial on and off the court. Rahim Ladani, CTV News.
And that'll be all for tonight's cast. We'll be back tomorrow at 5, 6, and 11 o'clock here on CFTK-TV. Thank you very much for tuning in, and have a good night.